Why do incompetent people think they are amazing? The Cloud Reset Survey by McKinsey, and a little something I call 50 Shades of Bad Judgment. These are the topics of this week's 5 Data, AI, and Analytics posts of the week. Let's get started with our 61st edition of the Data Driven Carcast. But before I go start with those items, I want to make sure I thank you for liking, sharing, commenting. Continue to participate in this global conversation. You are helping us create something that's quite amazing when we're learning from each other. So go ahead, like, link, tag people, and help us build the largest community on earth on data, AI, and analytics. Let's start with the fresh new data from the McKinsey group on the cloud survey. And the good news here is that McKinsey has identified that cloud-enabled organizations and operations can unlock more than $1 trillion, that's with a T, $1 trillion in shareholder value. Both half of it is on revenue growth and half on margin expansion. The other good news is that they also estimate that the lockdown has actually accelerated digital transformation. In fact, they're saying that we saw about 10 years worth of e-commerce growth in the last 3 months, and that companies expect to increase cloud spending by 47% next year. So that's for the good news that they see. But the bad news is that many cloud migrations actually have not paid off. In fact, companies average 23% over budget in their cloud spending, and they estimate that 30% of their outlays are wasted. So what can you do about this if you're struggling with this yourself? Well, those are the two pieces that I recommend you take a look at. McKinsey has written this cloud survey. It's great in-depth analysis on my blog on that, and also a great piece called The 7 Myths of Cloud Transformation. Take a look at it. The second piece is a little shorter. It's a little faster to read, but hopefully it'll help you as well. Gartner this week published some great research on data sharing. And so this is something that I'm sure is on your mind if you've seen the research. The good news is that by 2023, according to Gartner, organizations that promote data sharing will outperform their peers on most business value metrics. But by 2022, less than 5% of the data sharing programs will correctly identify trusted data and locate trusted data sources. So this is a great opportunity, but it's also a great challenge. Where do you start? Well, if you remember a few weeks ago, I shared a framework for smart data sharing, which is a piece by Alan and Mario from Gartner that they published. Take a look at that. One of the great comments we got on this thread this past week came from Jose Pedro Almeida, who also shared guidance from the World Economic Forum. Take a look at that. Thank you, Jose, for participating in the debate, and continue sharing those resources. They are super helpful. And before I close out and thank some of this week's heroes and the customers I talked to, I want to make sure I share 2 key resources on the science of decision making. The first is a shout out to Mike Forrester for sharing this here. The top, you can't see it very well, but these are the top 50 cognitive bias. This is an infographic by Visual Capitalist, and I call it the 50 Shades of Bad Judgment. This is a resource that I suggest you do just like me. You print it out and check it out every once in a while, because you're probably going to recognize some of these behaviors. You know, for instance, what happens when you think that future possibilities are disproportionately affected by something that happened before? Like the simple example of you toss a coin and you think that the last toss actually is going to affect the next one. The reality is that it's always 50-50 probability. So really the past in this case does not affect the future. This is something called the gambler's fallacy, or the Monte Carlo fallacy. Take a look at that. There's also something you might have seen these days when people are debating and arguing. It's called the Dunning-Kruger Effect. This is an amazing paradox. The less you know, the more confident you are, and the more you know, the less confident you are. So you might have experienced some of these recently. Take a look at that. It's here, and you can check it off when you notice it in your interactions. And then finally, something that I discovered a few years ago reading Dan and Chip Heath's brother's book, Mate Stick. They are professors at Stanford, and they call it the curse of knowledge. Sometimes when you know so much that actually it's difficult for you to engage in a productive collaboration because you know so much more than the people you're interacting with, and it's not working out. So anyway, take a look at these biases. It's always great to have access to it, and it helps us as we develop our emotional intelligence and try to understand biases and behavior. In fact, there's two more resources I want to give you on that. The first one is a new book by Erin Meyer and Reed Hastings called the No Rules Rules book. This is about Netflix and the culture of reinvention. If you remember, I talked about Erin last week. She talked about the culture maps, and what the culture maps are is the cultural differences when you're working with an international team, how you can understand each other so you can work out and collaborate effectively. And then another book that you should take a look at is a book by my friend Neil Malarkey. If you remember, Neil and I about 10 years ago recorded this great funny piece called Why Thinking is the Enemy of Innovation. We did this on April 1st. Well, he's written a book that are 7 short, sharp chapters to highlight the 7 steps to improve people skills. What are these steps? Learn, look, listen, link, let go, lighten, and leave well. You'll remember them because they all start with an L. Catch the book. It's a fast read. Catch this video I'm putting in my blog here. It's very entertaining. He's a great, engaging individual and a funny one, and you won't regret taking a look at his book and connecting with him. And then finally, this past week, Bernard Marr and I did a monthly roundup. This is when we look at the news and the topics in the data, AI, and analytics space, and we talk about them. We did this on LinkedIn Live, got a lot of reaction. Please continue to tell us what topics you want us to talk about, because we're going to be doing this every month. And so we would love to know what you want to hear from us. Again, I hope all of this helps you prepare for an awesome week. As always, ping me if there's anything I forgot. Ping me if there's anything you want me to call out next week. Have a great week. Stay connected. Be data driven. And I will see you next week.